Pope Francis is without doubt a man of the Second Vatican Council.
For sure.
If somebody wants to understand Pope Francis and his way of proceeding and his leadership, needs to go back to the experience, to the decrees, and to the development of the church provoked by the Second Vatican Council.
Hello friends, in today's video, I'm going to share with you a number of clips of many Roman Catholics calling out the Catholic Church and calling out even Pope Francis. Friends, I was listening to this. I'm like, what am I listening to? Are you telling me there are still some Protestants in Roman Catholicism? So anyway, we're going to have some fun with this one today. And this is very intentional. I'm sharing this for a reason because I'm going to read something in the end. You want to watch this video. I got a number of clips I'm going to share with you. Link in the description below. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. All right, let's begin with this man here. By the way, if you don't know this man, you should know him by now. We had a video about him. This is Archbishop Vigano. All right, Vigano does not play. Doesn't like the Pope very much. Well, let's begin with him. Listen to what he has to say to the Pope.
By Klaus Schwab and the family of international finance find in Bergoglio not a neutral spectator, which would itself already be an unheard of thing, but actually a zealous cooperator who abuses his own moral authority in order to support a destra outside the church the project of the dissolution of traditional society, while ad intra within the church he pursues the project of the demolition of the church in order to replace her with a philanthropic organization of Masonic inspiration. And it is scandalous. This applies to both, to civil and ecclesiastical world, confirming the pactum celeri, the criminal conspiracy between the deep state and the deep church. It seems to me that in this conspiracy, the role of the Jesuit has been decisive. It is no coincidence that, for the first time in history, a religious of the Society of Jesus is seated on the throne of Peter.
Friends, did you hear what this man just said? Yes, he said a Jesuit is sitting on the throne of Peter. Now, we can argue about the interpretation of Peter and the role of Peter and Christ and all that. We're not going to have this argument. But again, you wonder why this man was excommunicated? Yes, that's still going on today. He was removed from the Catholic Church, all right, cast aside. So this is Vice President J.D. Vance. Oh, yeah, he has some words for the Catholic Church as well. Take a listen.
But let me just address this particular issue, Margaret, because as a practicing Catholic, I was actually heartbroken by that statement. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are they worried about humanitarian concerns, or are they actually worried about their bottom line? We are going to enforce immigration law. We're going to protect the American people. Yeah. Donald Trump promised to do that. And I believe the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, if they're worried about the humanitarian costs of immigration enforcement, let them talk about the children who have been sex trafficked because of the wide open border of Joe Biden.
You personally
let them talk about
going
people
into
like Laken Riley
churches.
who were brutally murdered. I support us doing law enforcement against violent criminals, whether they're illegal immigrants or anybody else, in a way that keeps us safe.
Okay, friends, you heard that. Vice President is not happy with the Catholic charities and pushing back against what the Trump administration has been doing in dealing with the illegal migrants. Yes, the Catholic charities are in the forefront of encouraging this situation with the immigration problems we are dealing with. All right, the next individual we have on our list here is Tom Homan, who is the border czar. And he has a few short words for the Pope as well, for standing in the way and publishing articles and saying stuff that he doesn't agree with. And keep in mind, he is also a Roman Catholic. Take a listen.
Okay, so Pope Francis, in case you missed it, just sent a letter to bishops in the United States in which he described mass deportation of illegal migrants as a violation of dignity that will end badly. Here's Tom Homan's response. Thank you.
I mean, what is your response to the pontiff over these remarks?
You know, as a lifelong Catholic, I was baptized Catholic. I had First Communion as Catholic. I was confirmed Catholic. I've been a lifelong Catholic. My family's been lifelong Catholics. He ought to get out of the business of our national security and our border enforcement work and concentrate on the Catholic Church. You got a lot of problems right there in the Catholic Church. You got enough to do. You got enough to fix in your own home. You know, then leave the border stuff to us. We know what we're doing. And here's what he doesn't understand. And plus, he's got a border wall around the Vatican. That's okay. But we can have a border. We can have a wall around the United States. And look, bottom line is, here's what he needs to understand. President Trump has illegal immigration, border crossings down 90%. 90%, which means 90% less people are coming. How many children aren't dying every day on that border? How many women and children aren't being sex trafficked across that border? How many women are not being sexually assaulted by members of the cartels? How many known suspected terrorists aren't crossing that border? Under Joe Biden, over 4,000 illegal aliens died crossing the border. Now it's at a record low. We're saving lives. And that's what the Pope ought to be paying attention to if he wants to get in our business. We're saving lives every day. A secure border saves lives. When less fentanyl comes across that border, less Americans die from drug overdoses. Stick to the Catholic Church. Leave border enforcement to us.
Here he is again in another video. Tom Homan has some more things to say about the Catholic Church. What he's going to address here is that you need to focus on fixing the Catholic Church. Again, the man speaks his mind. Take a listen.
Neighborhoods and more non-criminals being arrested because they forced us in the community.
Mr. Holman, the Pope this morning had some very harsh words for the...
I got harsh words for the Pope. Pope ought to fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I was First Communion as a Catholic, confirmation as a Catholic. You ought to fix the Catholic Church and concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us for securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall around the United States. So I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us.
What about your meeting with ICE about making sure that migrants don't get...
Now, this is the best one. This man is awesome. Now, again, this is Remnant TV. I had to subscribe to that channel. I was like, I'm subscribing, man. He is a Roman Catholic, but he is what you call a conservative, traditional Catholic. They don't play around. Okay, they don't play around. I mean, I was listening to this. I'm like, man, these guys got the spirit of the Protestant Reformation. Like, they really do. Anyway, so there's a lot you can learn from this channel. There's a lot of contents there. You don't have to agree with everything, of course. But again, you're getting a Catholic view, so you kind of have to filter through that. But I want you to hear what he says about the Pope. Okay, just as you saw at the start of the video, listen to what he says, friends. Take a listen.
Hey, we're talking about Christian morality. I don't blame poor Donald Trump for failing in every single case to strictly implement Christian moral principles every step of the way, right? Especially not when the world's moral authority, this guy, is in Davos skiing with the devil or whatever he's doing. I mean, that's the problem. This is the problem, which I've said so many times. The fixing of this problem has to come first before we can make too many demands on politicians in states that are increasingly secular, right? This is the problem, and thank God a lot of people in very high places in the church are seeing it, as we've been talking about so many people, cardinals, bishops, priests in the church. And the latest, of course, is this Dutch Bishop Robert Musserts, who took to his blog a few weeks ago and just blasted the Vatican and Pope Francis for focusing on what? For focusing on climate change and social justice, rather than the salvation of souls, which is their job, you see? So the bishop said that this negative trend, he actually admitted this, a negative trend of the church is becoming like life coach and social uplift and climate enthusiasts, right? He said this negative trend has dominated the Catholic Church since, wait for it, the Second Vatican Council. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting somewhere. And the bishop goes on, he says, how did it get to the point where we see rainbow flags and LGBTQRBS activists dancing around the altar, sermons that are expressions of political correctness more than anything else? How do we get to this point? And he says, I see a hunger for tradition and transcendence in young Catholics. I see them wanting the Latin Mass, he says. But Rome is preoccupied with the new buzzword, synodality. Thank you. Exactly, Your Excellency. God bless you, right? Because His Excellency is basically saying what we all know. And again, which is foundational to this show, to the point and purpose of why we do this underground, that when politicians out there in secular states now, when they have no serious Christian moral authority to answer to anymore, all hell breaks loose. And this kind of thing becomes commonplace.
We walk up to him, and he's sitting, and Don Jr. introduces me, and he says, Dad, this is Dave Rubin. He has a great podcast, blah, blah, blah. And Trump looks up, and he's like, I kind of recognize you. And I was like, oh, well, I go on Fox, I'm on Tucker a lot. He says, oh, Tucker, that must be it. And then he turns to you, and he goes, and who are you?
He goes, who are you? Because I'm just standing there, like, I don't know,
He goes, who are you? And you go, well, I'm his husband. And he goes, husband? Husband?
You two are married?
You two are married? And then he slaps his hands on the table.
Yeah.
And he goes, I want to stand up. I want to stand up and shake your hands. I think that's great. I think that's just
turns to
great.
Melania, he's like, honey, these two guys are married. And he turns to me, he's like, you guys are too good looking. That's your problem. You're too good looking.
Yeah, right? But don't forget, that particular clip was shot probably 10 years, nearly 10 years, after the Holy Father asked CNN to bring in their cameras and record him kissing a gay couple. We've used this a lot, but don't ever forget that a lot of this stuff started right here when the world saw this. 10 years after that, Francis comes out and says he wants priests and bishops of the Catholic Church to be blessing gay couples. Not marriage, of course, just blessing the gay people, the couples that want blessings, because, everybody can make those fine distinctions in this dumbed-down world of ours, right? So this, friends, is the reality, and it's a pretty harsh reality that we all face now. And that, again, fundamentally, that's the problem. There is no moral voice in the world anymore. And all hell has broken loose. Chaos has trumped Jesus Christ in our world, right? And it's not Trump's fault, but we can't close an eye to it either. We can't. My mother used to talk about that. There is a conditioning process. Don't get used to it. Don't get conditioned to accept it. Don't act as though it's normal, because that's what happens. After a while, you're tolerating the most obscene things. Even a few years ago, you would have considered the height of obscenity, and now you just get used to it. Everybody's going along with it. And that's what I mean so many times on this show. Don't become them. That's why we got to be so careful. Don't become them, right? We need to publicly, friends, what are you going to do about it? Well, we starts with publicly acknowledging that Jesus Christ, not Donald Trump, not any other politician, Jesus Christ is the Salvator Mundi, okay? He is the Savior of the world. And we cannot be saved without him. This country cannot be saved without turning back to Jesus Christ. A secular state that pays only lip service at best to God is doomed.
Can I remind you again, friends? He is a Roman Catholic. Strong, traditional, conservative Catholic views. It's crazy. But they still strongly believe in the union of church and state. When you listen for them all, you're like, okay. But nevertheless, why do so many Catholics are having an issue with the behavior of the Pope, especially traditional Catholics? They cannot seem to understand what is going on with the doctrine of Catholicism and the behavior of the Pope. Friends, that answer is going to come from the general Jesuit himself. This is Arturo Sosa, okay? He's going to tell you why the Roman Catholic Church is having a difficult time understanding what the Pope is doing. He's going to tell you exactly why. He's going to spell it out to you. It is because the Pope is a Jesuit, and the goal the Pope is looking to fulfill as a Jesuit Pope, he's going to spell it out. It is Vatican II. It is ecumenism, interfaithism, The goal is evangelizing the world by watering down, at least apparently, Catholicism in the hope to appeal to the masses. Friends, that's what's going on here. Take a listen.
Sticking with Pope Francis, there's a narrative around him and his papacy that he's a radical reformer. And among his fans, this can sometimes lead to disappointment if they think he's not changing things fast enough or going far enough. And among his critics who are worried that he might be doing radical changes that go against the church tradition. So I'm wondering, what do you think of that narrative? And is it the right one? Does it get something wrong about Pope Francis and what he's trying to do with the church?
Pope Francis is without doubt a man of the Second Vatican Council.
For sure.
You are young people, and you don't remember Vatican Council, but if somebody wants to understand Pope Francis and his way of proceeding and his leadership, needs to go back to the experience, to the decrees, and to the development of the church provoked by the Second Vatican Council. That's a reference points that we cannot forget if we want to understand what is going on in the church and in the mind and the heart of Pope Francis. So Pope Francis is leading the church in the sense of Vatican II, decided with the adjustments needed by the new times and the signs of the Spirit. That's why he is all the time talking about human migration in all its forms, the environment crisis, the growth of inequality, because the Vatican Council teach us to read the signs of times and to respond them. And we have to respond with dialogue among all, especially different religions, and we have to use the dialogue as the path to fraternity. That's what Pope Francis is trying to do, and he is inspired recently in the Vatican Council. If we go back, we arrive to the gospel and to Jesus Christ.
Wow. I mean, so much truth in that. I'm not sure if it's truth according to the word, but truth historically speaking. Pope Francis is a man after the Second Vatican Council. Part of that movement is to unite and have dialogues and communicate, appeal to the world, and make the Catholic Church as attractive as possible. Whether he is far right or far left, what matters here is fulfilling Vatican Council. And if you know what happened during that time, and this could be a whole other video, we're going to have to come back and do another video about what happened during the Second Vatican Council. Boy, I'll tell you something. A lot of what's going on in some of our churches, crazy music, crazy worship. Some people are going to Rome to visit and dance with the Pope, giving medals to the Pope and stuff like that. You know all that story. But the thing is, Second Vatican Council is where it all came from. Anyway, friends, what am I trying to say is this. There's a number of things I want to highlight here. I'm not going to read this quotation for the sake of time. The first thing I want to show you is Ellen White tells us, we are told in the spirit of prophecy, there are many sincere Roman Catholics who are true Christians. It's good to keep in mind, but they don't know what we know. God is going to eventually shine light upon them. They're going to come out of Babylon and join God's remnant church, okay? This is what we are told. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to quickly highlight here is when you listen to these men speaking, you can learn something. The Roman Catholic Church and many popes, many ministers and cardinals and individuals, lay members as well, they're not afraid to address the errors of their church. I want you to think about that. Because I got some emails from some people and some messages from some people who said, if you speak against any of our leaders, you are in the wrong. I'm like, bruh, who told you you cannot address the errors of the church? Isn't that what the Protestant reformers did? Keep in mind, majority of the reformers were once Roman Catholics. You think about that. They came out of Catholicism and push forward the Protestant Reformation. They had to speak against what was wrong. So, side note, we don't have to condemn the church, but to say you cannot speak against the errors of the church, that is an extreme position to take. You can learn something here. But also, friends, it also shows you some are very sincere, but some of them are led. But the Jesuit, the general of the Jesuit, he knows what he's talking about. And that's what you and I must also understand. We can do a whole lot more discussion about this, but I think it's best to end this video. Share your thought and perspective with me about this. Where do you stand when it comes to this matter? Comment below, share your thought below. Let's have the conversation as well. Until next time, have a good one. Bye.